In this video, we're talking about tips for buying graded comic books for beginners. Everything you need to know to make that first purchase. Stay tuned.
Bry's Comics.
Welcome to Bry's Comics. This channel is all about comic book investment and speculation with an emphasis on how to have this hobby fund itself. If that's something that interests you, consider hitting that subscribe button. In so doing, it will enter you to win a free slab. This month, we have some awesome giveaways, and every single month there's a new giveaway. Also, if you head over to bryscomics.com and sign up for the newsletter, you're entered to win an additional free slab over there, and you also get first access to new inventory and special discount codes. And congratulations to Zach Bropes. Zach, you are the winner of the November YouTube giveaway. I feel like you've won something before, and that may be the case, but what I do is I go and pick a random video from that month, use this little app here to choose a winner from all comments, and the first person to pop up is the winner. So congratulations to you, Zach. And here's how I do it for the newsletter over at bryscomics.com. I can't show you that page because of confidentiality and all my customer information, but congratulations to Michael McLean. Michael, you are the winner for the newsletter giveaway for November at bryscomics.com. Follow me over on Instagram for trades for grails, live sales, and fresh content over there. And lastly, follow me on Whatnot, link down in the description for $15 towards your first purchase. Recently, I decided to dip my toes in the graded coin collecting arena, a whole new area of collecting and hobby for me. And it's something that was really interesting to me, and I'm learning all of this stuff about graded coin collecting, finding lots of helpful videos. And I thought I should make a video like this on graded comic books because I've been in this business for several years now. I've been a collector for many, many years, and I can absolutely, make a video with confidence about all the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts of getting started with graded comics. So that's what inspired this video. The tone for this video is assuming that the viewer has absolutely no knowledge of graded comic books. So if I say something that you don't understand, if I say a term that needs to be explained, leave a note down in the comments, and I will answer that question for you. Also, if you're a seasoned collector and I missed anything that you think is really important for new collectors, leave a comment down below for that as well. This is a fantastic community, and I am always surprised about the depth of knowledge that gets presented in the comment section. So if you're a new collector, make sure to check out the comment section down below as well, because there could be some helpful tips from other collectors. So to break down what this video is going to entail, we're going to talk about necessary resources to have to buy graded comic books. We're going to talk about what you should buy. We're going to talk about what grading company you should use, where you should buy the graded comics, and how to know what is a fair price or fair market value. And we're going to have examples of specific books for each. So let's start off with resources. What resources are necessary for buying graded comics? The three resources that I use every single day in buying and selling comics, first and foremost, is Key Collector. Key Collector is an app. You can get a free trial. There's a free version and a paid version. It's an app that highlights like a very comprehensive, almost every single key comic book and the significance of it. I believe you can still use code Bry's Comics for a free 2-week trial, but I don't get any kickback from that whatsoever. So you could just Google it and see and find a discount code to get a free 2-week trial of the paid version, and you can compare the two plans and see which one is right for you, the free or the paid version. But it's absolutely imperative that you have this app. It's just the most user-friendly, the most comprehensive. The reason you're going to want to use Key Collector, especially if you're a new collector, is because you'll probably find that you're quickly overwhelmed with the possibilities and different options for what to collect. And Key Collector is a great resource to narrow down what it is that you want to collect. Most people that just collect any and everything that strikes their fancy, that catches their eye, that they kind of like, find themselves in a position, down the road where they realize they want to narrow down their collecting instead of just collecting any and everything. And so I think you'll be a step ahead of the curve if you can narrow down what you want to collect early on. If you can begin with the end in mind, one of the 7 habits of highly successful people. And so one of the things you might want to check out is the top list. So here we have the top 100 copper keys, bronze keys, modern keys, silver keys, Marvel villains, female Marvel heroes, so this is just a great resource to get some ideas flowing of what you want to collect. Another really cool thing to figure out is if you want to collect a certain character. So let's just type in here Black Cat under characters and see what comes up for Black Cat. So here we have Black Cat in Harvey and Black Cat. So here we can see her first appearance in Amazing Spider-Man 194, second appearance, third appearance. Spider-Man reveals his identity to Black Cat. Here's something that you just probably wouldn't have found. Do you need this one if you're a Black Cat collector? I don't know. It does have a really awesome Black Cat cover, and it's really affordable, so that might be something you'd want to pick up. The first limited series for Black Cat, Beavis and Butthead number 10. All right, so this is the first battle of Black Cat and Silver Sable, a one-page story that occurs in a comic book being read and commentated by Beavis and Butthead. I mean, where else are you going to find this comic book? How else would this have got on your radar other than Key Collector? That's why I think it's such an awesome resource is you find stuff like this. You might pick this book up for $10 and it might bring you an incredible amount of joy. You might like just be so happy that you have this weird Black Cat key that you never would have found otherwise, and you got it for a really good price. I can't tell you how many books I've come across just searching the different categories on Key Collector that have become, you know, like cornerstones or at least the most enjoyable pieces of my collection. So that's why I think you should get the app. Other resources that I use every single day is gpanalysis.com. This is a paid subscription. And if you're serious about buying and selling comic books, I think it also is an absolute must, even with the $10.99 monthly subscription price tag. To me, it's absolutely worth it. You can get by without it if you're just occasionally buying here or there. But if you are serious about buying, I think it's definitely worth picking up this. Again, I'm not associated with them in any way. I'm just a customer. It's just an organic review. But GP Analysis, and the last resource that I use every single day is eBay. And we'll get into more about that of why I use those three sources to determine, you know, fair market value rather than some of these other sources that suggest fair market values. We'll get more into that here in just a moment. So next I want to talk about what should you buy? Like, this is a valid question. I mean, some people just getting into graded comic books might just say like, I'm overwhelmed. There's so many different comic books to choose from. Like, which one should I buy? And my advice here is to buy what you love with caveats. Okay, so the old adage in this comic collecting community is buy what you love and you can't go wrong. And for the most part, that is absolutely correct. At the end of the day, you know, it's your collection. If you buy what you love, even if you get stuck with it, if the price goes up, goes down, if you love it, you're in good shape. However, I would add a couple caveats to make that an even smarter position to be in. And that is buy what you love and not what everyone else loves. Okay, so what I'm referring to here is the hot and trending list. If you're around this hobby at all, you're gonna see some hot lists. You're gonna see some trending lists in one way, shape, or form. It's important to tame your FOMO, right? So if you see something that hits the trending list, it's all exciting. Everybody's talking about said new character or whatever that's coming to the MCU. Ask yourself, do you really love it? Let's take, for example, Wonder Man. Okay, Wonder Man is a recent thing. He's coming to the MCU. There's all this hype around Wonder Man. Well, do you really love Wonder Man? Is that something that you can just go ahead and pass on? At the end of the day, if you get stuck with Wonder Man keys, are you going to want to put Wonder Man up on your wall, or is it just on your radar because it's hot and trending? So my advice here is buy what you love, not what everyone else loves. So if everyone else is talking about something, but you really don't care about it, there are so many other options in here. Just steer away from that and focus on what you actually love. The second caveat I would add for buy what you love is pick up stuff that is liquid. Okay, there again are hundreds of thousands of options for different comic books, thousands of different characters, different genres, different eras, different publishers, you name it. So buy what is liquid. Avoid the trap of buying stuff that is so niche that you're going to have a hard time selling it. Now, this is all within the context of buy what you love. If you absolutely love this crazy, super weird niche where it's just like this weird, you know, bondage cover in a certain era with a certain character, if that's your thing, if that's what really floats your boat, absolutely buy it. But my point here is that there's so many options. Why not buy what you love and that which is liquid? If it's a really tight niche, and it might be really hard to sell that actual book. So why not focus your funds, your collecting money, because we all have limited funds, and there's like almost an unlimited amount of stuff to collect. So why not focus on stuff that you love and stuff that is liquid? And so what I mean by liquid is stuff that's constantly selling, stuff that's constantly, on people's radar or constantly desirable. And this could be anything from modern to golden age. So buy what you love, but also pick stuff that is liquid. And the last caveat to buy what you love is, I would say, buy stuff that has potential to go up in the future. And you can combine all three of those things: buying what you love, stuff that is liquid, and stuff that has potential to go up in the future. So maybe you focus on a character that is really big in the comics but hasn't been introduced in the MCU yet. Well, when it does get introduced to the MCU, the price is going to go up. So now you can find something that you love that's popular in comics, hasn't been introduced in the MCU, and now you have something that you love that's also a really good investment. And smash like, subscribe if that's something that interests you, because I'm always doing videos about, recommendations on stuff that I think, has good future potential value in comics. So now I want to touch on what grading company should you use. There are a lot of different grading companies that grade comic books, but for the purposes of this video and for the purposes of a new collector, my recommendation is that you stick with CGC, okay? There are two main grading companies. There's CGC and there's CBCS, and then there's a whole bunch of other companies that are smaller, up and coming, smaller grading companies that are less established. This is a hotly debated topic about which grading company is the best, which one you should use. And at this point in time, CGC actually has, very reasonable prices that are considerable close to all the other grading companies. They're certainly close. They may be slightly higher than the other grading companies, but their turnaround times are actually the best in the industry at this time for almost every tier. So tiers, different comic books are graded in different tiers, whether it's a $100,000 comic, whether it's a brand new release that just came out yesterday, and everything in between. There's a bunch of different tiers for grading comics. So CGC has different turn times for those different tiers. And in almost every case, it's the best in the business as far as the turn time. And when you couple that with the fact that their prices are very close or in line with its competitors, and you couple it with the fact that they are the most liquid grading company, meaning that when you go to resell the comic, CGC sells the fastest and the most, it just makes perfect sense to stick with CGC. Now, once you become a more seasoned collector and you understand the ins and outs of grading companies, you may choose to go with one of the other grading companies. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to recommend to new collectors to stick with CGC or CBCS. Now, the big difference between the two is liquidity. I would say that both companies are equally trustworthy, but CBCS sells consistently for less money than CGC in almost every case. There are nuances to this. There are some cases where CBC is in line with CGC. I'm sure there's an example here or there where CBCS sells for more. But by and large, and I've been selling comics for a long time, CBCS usually sells for about 20% less than CGC. You could use this to your advantage if you don't care about the fact that it's a different case. Some people like to only collect one type of label, one type of grading company. But if you don't care and you see the same key comic book that you're after graded by CBCS and it's 20% less than CGC, you could use that to your advantage and just buy it for 20% less. Just keep in mind that when you go to sell it, it's going to sell for 20% less than CGC, and it's also going to be slightly less liquid. That means that it's a little bit harder to sell CBCS comics than it is to sell CGC comics. I've been doing it for years. Most people prefer CGC over CBCS. It's just a numbers thing. And therefore, when you sell that book, it will be harder to sell even at the 20% off. So now we want to talk about where should you buy your graded comic books. There are a ton of different options of places to buy the comic books, whether it's online or at a convention or at your local comic book store. And there's a ton of different options, all right? And you can find good deals everywhere. But I think most of us and most new collectors will probably have greatest access to the internet. And I think if you stick to auction houses on the internet, you can find some really good deals. Now, the biggest auction houses, first and foremost, is eBay. eBay has the most, consistent users overall. But you also have auction houses that are almost entirely dedicated to comic books, like comiclink.com, comicconnect.com, heritage.com, which also does other collectibles as well, and mycomicshop.com. A lot of people sleep on mycomicshop.com, but there's some great deals that can be had there, and they are a highly reputable dealer in the community. In fact, My comic shop also always pushes their products that are on their website to eBay, and they just add on like the eBay fees to the price. So if you ever see a listing on eBay from my comic shop, just go to their website and you'll get it for 10% less. What I like about auction houses for graded comic books is the market decides the value. Whereas when you go to a fixed price listing, you're often going to pay a little bit of a premium for a fixed price listing. Most people that are selling on eBay and the fixed prices at the auction houses, because there's items being auctioned at the auction houses, and there's also, buy it now listings at the auction houses. And typically the buy it now listings are a little bit elevated over the fair market value. But when they actually go to auction, that's when the rubber meets the road. That's when the people actually bidding on that comic in that moment decide what it's worth. And that's often what sets the fair market value. So if you stick to auction houses and you're patient and you don't get carried away, you can get some really good deals. You could also get into a bidding war and end up paying a little bit more for comics. But if you go into the auction with an idea in your head of what you think is the fair price and what you're going to pay, you can get some really good deals at auction houses. I'm also going to do a shameless plug here to myself, to my own website, at the risk of being criticized for this, but I don't really care if I get criticized for this because it's absolutely true. On my website at brycecomics.com, if you use code COLLECT10, that code is always active. You get 10% off. And in almost every single case with that 10% off code, it's going to be less than the price that we're going to go through on the computer that shows how I come up with fair market value. I list my books based on fair market value, based on recent sales, using the process that I'm going to describe here, not using, some other website that, has an average. And by and large, if you buy a book on my website with the code COLLECT10, getting 10% off, you can almost rest assured that that's like the best price that there is out there. Those that follow my channel, those that are, customers of my website can attest to this. Of course, there's nuance to that. I mean, I very rarely even list something if I don't want to sell it. If I intend on selling it, I want it to be a competitive price. If I don't want to sell it, if I'm not ready to sell it, then I just won't list it on the website. I'm not going to list it like way higher than it's actually worth. So now we're going to talk about the most important part of this video, and we'll get into some actual examples of determining a fair market value of different types of comic books in different situations. And this is the most important part, is how much should I pay? How do I know what is a fair price to pay? We're going to talk about how to determine fair market value. That's a term to describe what a reasonable person could be expected to pay for a given comic in the current market conditions. That's the fair market value. We're also going to talk about things like the census number. The census is how many of that book is graded on the census accounted for by the different grading companies. We're also going to talk about the trajectory of the character of that comic, and you put all of that together to determine what is the fair market value. Now, what I use to determine the fair market value is GPA, which logs actual sales from dozens of different websites, but primarily the auction houses and eBay. And I couple that with what's available in the market on eBay and at the different auction houses. And you couple that with the census, put all of that information together, add to it the trajectory of that character, and you can determine the fair market value. It's not as complicated as it sounds, and we'll get into some examples here. One of the problems with some of these websites that actually suggest a fair market value to you is that they're using a program or a formula to just calculate a fair market value based on past sales, and that is not the full picture. All right, so if you have a formula that calculates the last 90 days of sales, and it just averages the last 90 days and it comes up with a number, that's not going to do you any good in a bull market or a bear market. The only time a 90-day average is really going to do you any good is in a static market. And the comic book market today, this is being filmed on December 1st, 2022, has been on a tumultuous journey. It's been up and down. And so 90-day average really isn't that helpful. For example, if you're in a bear market and the prices are going up and you're taking a 90-day average of a sale that was down here, up here, and up here, the average of that is going to be somewhere around here, but we're trending up. So the fair market value, which is an average of 90-day sales, doesn't do you any good because it's actually selling for quite a bit more than that. So that's when you see stuff sell for more than the fair market value. But in a down market, conversely, if you have sales that are up here and then down here, then down here, then down here, like we currently are in today's market, an average of the last 90 days is going to put you somewhere around here. But we're trending down. So 90-day average doesn't do you any good. It's the sales from 90 days ago have no impact on today because we're trending down and it doesn't seem to be trending back up. So it works in both markets. If you use one of these websites that gives you a fair market value that's just a program based on an average of recent sales, it's kind of misleading. So I think the better thing to do is to take a look at the most recent sales, take a look at what's available, and critically think about the trajectory of that book. And we'll get into some examples here in the computer right now. So we're going to give 3 examples here of how to determine what is a good price for a book that you may be currently considering purchasing. We're going to look at Amazing Spider-Man number 252, the first appearance of Spider-Man's black costume. We're also going to look at Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars number 8, the origin of the black symbiote costume that later bonds with Eddie Brock to become Venom. And we're also going to look at Fantastic Four number 52, the first appearance of the Black Panther T'Challa, King of Wakanda, because I think these 3 examples highlight some important things to consider about whatever market you're currently thinking to buy in. I want this video to be evergreen. I don't want it to be about what's going on in today's market. I want you to be able to consider, these things, these trends in any market, whether the market is raging up or whether the market is bearish and coming down. So the first thing that I like to do when considering fair market value of a book is look at the CGC census. So if you go to cgc.com, you can click on resources and go to the census and look up the actual book. Or one of the easier ways to do it is if you have GP analysis to analyze prices is right here. If you click on this little button that says census, it'll take you right to it because this function on CGC's website is really clunky. So here we can see Amazing Spider-Man number 252. And it says the key comments ties with Marvel Team Up number 141 for the first appearance of the black costume. And Amazing Fantasy 15 cover homage. We can see that there is 19,464 total copies on the census, 1,800 of which are 9.8. So let's say you were really after a 9.8 and that's what you wanted. How do you figure out what is a good price to pay? Well, if you come to GP analysis, you can look at the 9.8 range. And the first thing to note is that there's a 9.8 that with nothing listed here is just the regular direct edition 9.8. There's also a Canadian price variant 9.8, which is considerably more expensive because it's considerably more rare. If you go to the census, you can see the Canadian price variant has 629 total copies compared to 20,000 total copies. So that's a completely different price bracket. And we also have the newsstand edition, also considerably more expensive than the direct edition, but it isn't broken out on CGC's census. So it's kind of unknown how rare the newsstand actually is. And this one, we'll get more into that here in just a bit. But let's say you're just after a direct edition copy. If you click on the graph here, you can see the actual graph of how it's performed since 2002, 20 years of sales data here. And if you click this little button here, you can see the sales for 2022. And I think that this is the best way to come up with the fair market value is to look at the most recent sales. Taking a look at the average of all of these is okay, but in a down market, we're trending downwards. Today, I'm filming this on December 1st, 2022. I think it's more important to look at the most recent 2 sales here, that $12.97 and $1,200 is, it seems like based on these numbers and based on the fact that it's come down so much over the past month, I think that $1,200 is a fair price for this book. So the question becomes, can you find a copy for $1,200? If we start with eBay, you'll notice that there are no copies available for $1,200. The lowest listed price is $1,650 or best offer. And there's a bunch of newsstand editions. You can tell by the difference in the bottom left-hand corner. Spidey's face is direct. Barcode is newsstand. $1,650 is the lowest listed price or best offer on eBay. So let's check the auction houses. Here at Heritage Auctions, you can see that there are no 9.8s currently available. And remember, in this experiment, we're saying you're really after a 9.8, but there are 2 newsstand 9.6s, a direct 9.4, a 9.2, more 9.6s coming up soon in the future. Here on comiclink.com, there's also no 9.8s available for sale. But there's a 9.6 newsstand, a direct, a signed by Stan Lee. plenty of copies, but no 9.8s. And if we look at Comic Connect, there's one 9.8 up for sale, and it's a newsstand copy. The current bid is $838. There's 12 days left on this auction. Let's try mycomicshop.com. There's also no 9.8s currently up for auction. These red ones are the ones that are at auction. The highest graded copy available at auction is a 9.6. So the lowest available price right now is $1,650. And this is where it's really important to consider supply and demand, because this is a book that is so coveted. It's likely that somebody will make a best offer on this for $1,500 because it's the lowest thing that they can currently find. And it's possible that this book will actually log a $1,500 sale for the next sale. That may be why this one was logged for $1,700. But if you look at both of these copies were at auctions. This one was at Hake's auction for the 9.8 for the $1,297, and this one was actually at Heritage for 9.8 white pages, $1,200, just a few days ago on November 27th. So what I would do, rather than biting the bullet and paying $1,500, offering this guy and hoping he accepts $1,500, what I would do is set up an account at each one of these auction houses, Heritage, Comic Link, Comic Connect, and My Comic Shop, and set up a want list for new books and put your Amazing Spider-Man 252 Direct Edition 9.8 on a want list for all four of these sites. They will come up again because there's 1,800 total copies. This book is always changing hands. So far this year, just this month, there was 4 sales. And so far this year, there's been 39 sales. So it will come up for sale again. And if you're just patient and wait for the auction, you're almost guaranteed to get a better price than buying the lowest listed buy it now price. Let's take a look at Marvel Superhero Secret Wars number 8 and see how this compares. If we go, the first thing I like to do is go and look at the census. And here you can tell that this book has actually more copies on the census. There's 25,000 total graded copies compared to 20,000 of Amazing Spider-Man 252. And we also see that there's actually a greater proportion of 9.8s, which is interesting. There's almost 6,000 9.8s. The difference between 9.8s and 9.6s is very little with this book. Whereas with Amazing Spider-Man 252, if you look at the census for that, there's a huge discrepancy between the 9.6 and the 9.8. There's way more 9.8s proportionally than 9.6s. So this would explain why this book is consistently selling for way less money in the 9.8. There's more of them, and there's more 9.8s. Here we can see the most recent sale was $661. If we can see that there was 314 total copies that changed hands so far this year, and there's been tons of sales so far just this month. Look at November. We're looking at like almost 25 or 30 sales just in November. This book is constantly changing hands, and the numbers are really tightly knit together. They're, for the most part, right in between in November, 600 and 700. I mean, there's a couple that are over 700, and there's a couple in the 500 range. So I would say that a fair price for this book is anything between 600 and 700 bucks. And if you look at the $528 sale here, this was actually at auction at Heritage, 9.8 white pages, really nice looking copy, nothing wrong with it. This is just a tremendous deal. And so this is an example of how it could behoove you to, set those want list notifications on those different auction houses and wait for one to come up at auction and try to snipe one. If you're just patient, they come up so often, you very well could be the person that grabs one in the $500 range. Here's another one at Hake's auction. So be patient, set those want lists. Here's one for $552. Let's see what auction house, also at Heritage, 9.8 white pages. So it's up to you. This one looks like it might have a little ding on it though. I'm not sure what's going on there. It's almost like splitting hairs, like if you're going to get one at auction for $589 versus buying one now for $650 cash, does it really make that big of a difference? What about the time invested in, searching these auction houses and being present for the actual auction? There's a couple different ways to look at it. Some people will look at it as like, it's the thrill of the hunt, right? It's the thrill of the hunt. It's way more exciting to get it for $528 rather than just buy it now. Or are you impatient? You just want to satisfy that need and get that book and have it shipped to you right away and get it right away. it depends on, your personality and how you like to collect things. Personally, I like the thrill of the hunt. I like grabbing things for a great deal. I think it's fun. I think it adds to the hobby, but that's kind of a personal preference. So now we're going to look at Fantastic Four number 52, the first appearance of the Black Panther. And this book is interesting because we just had Wakanda Forever come out in theaters. It was released on November 11th, 2022. Again, this video is being recorded on December 1st. So it's been about 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks since the movie actually came out. And let's see what prices have been doing. Here in the 7.0 range, we can see that since the movie came out, the prices are pretty much on a downward trend. And this is a trend that holds true for almost all movies, that, all of the hype and everything is before the movie comes out, maybe the first few days after it actually comes out. But usually after that point, the hype dies out and we move on to other things. Marketing efforts by the big, movie producers and stuff is going to focus on the next new and exciting thing. So it makes sense that the fervor for this character would naturally die down after the movie has come out. So here we can see that right after the movie came out, they logged a high sale for $2,100. But since then, it's come down $1,500 and $1,580. So I would think that this book would continue to come down in price. So for that, because there's nothing to really suggest that it should go up in price in the near future. I think for the foreseeable future, it will go down until we get the next Black Panther movie, until we get the next life of this character and next hype for, because Black Panther isn't going anywhere. It's just, we're going to focus on other things for the time being. So this is a good time to buy over the next, few months. And I think that, even if you were a little bit patient and waited a little bit longer, it would behoove you. I think $1,500 is a fair price today, but, on this one, I would suggest waiting a few months and getting an even better price. You can see what's available, all right? If we look at the supply that's available, there's a whole bunch of copies available here on Heritage that are at auction now. There's more coming up soon. If we look at Comic Link, there's a whole bunch of copies available right now that are ending in the next day, and a whole bunch more copies that are coming soon. So there's a whole bunch of supply, more supply coming. There's nothing to suggest a lot of hype for this character at this point. So I think that prices will continue to come down for this one. So there you have it, guys. My tips for beginners on buying graded comics. If you found this video helpful, please consider hitting subscribe, comment on this video, and like this video, and you're entered to win a free slab. And if you head over to brycecomics.com and sign up for the newsletter, you're entered to win a free slab over there as well. Thank you as always for sticking with me to the end of the video, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bryce Comics.